There is no production that has made it to the finish line without a series of fluffs and blunders along the way. Now, Doctor Who has been on our screens for 60 years, so it definitely has its fair share of mistakes and bloopers, arguably more than most shows. So we thought, considering some of them are absolutely fantastic, that we'd share some with you. So with that in mind, I'm Ellie with Who Culture, here with 10 Doctor Who bloopers you need to see. Before we get into the main countdown, there are just 2 moments that I feel like need to be mentioned that don't technically count as bloopers, but they do prove just how much fun the cast and crew seem to have while making Doctor Who. Firstly, the Sycorax. Remember those skeletal masks and those glowing red eyes? Well, maybe they won't seem quite so menacing once you've seen 4 of them performing a beautiful rendition of Queen's Bohemian Rhapsody. Modern art. And the same goes for the Cybermen. They're quite terrifying, but not so much once you've seen a montage of them playing gleefully in a park and running around shouting, "I'm free! Free's a bird! A cyberbird!" Free's a bird, a cyberbird. I mean, I guess the conversion process doesn't always go quite as planned. Number 10. Shakespeare gets a phone call. Filming any kind of period drama must be a really odd situation. You've got people dressed head to toe in historical costumes, sat around on their mobile phones and surrounded by crew members wearing jeans and trainers. But once the cameras start rolling, it's like you've been transported through time. Unless one of those modern inventions interrupts the illusion. And that is exactly what happened during the filming of Series 3's The Shakespeare Code. Now, the episode did a really good job of recreating this period in British history. You had Shakespeare sat around with his pals, drinking beer and flirting with the barmaid in a 16th century British pub. And then, Shakespeare suddenly gets a phone call.
And I'll do more than that later tonight. Cool.
Now, there's something really unsettling about seeing William Shakespeare pull out a 2007 mobile phone, which, to be honest, seems like it should be from the 16th century by modern standards, and claims that it's a phone call from his agent. Now, of course, in reality, it was actor Dean Lennox Kelly who was in fact receiving a phone call from his agent, but you can be sure that if they existed during Shakespeare's time, Shakespeare most certainly would have had an agent as well, although I don't think they would have contacted him via a Nokia. Number 9. The Angel is full of what now? Matt Smith had some very large shoes to fill when he took over from David Tennant in 2010. Although his first episode to air was The 11th Hour, this wasn't the first episode that he filmed. It was actually The Time of Angels and Flesh and Stone that started his and Karen Gillan's Doctor Who journey. During a scene in Flesh and Stone, the Doctor is trying to direct Amy, who can't open her eyes, to his location, and he warns her that the forest is full of angels. But during one take, Matt Smith got a little bit muddled with his lines, and he actually said, "The angel is full of forests."
This is important. The angel is full of forests.
Now, what actually makes this even more funny is the fact that he doesn't seem to notice his mistake. It's only when a crew member points it out to him that he realises what he's done. Blooper aside, this actually speaks volumes to how committed and focused he was to the role right from the very beginning. Number 8. Yahoo! The most common types of bloopers that we see are usually actors fluffing or forgetting their lines, but sometimes the fault lies with a misbehaving prop or set piece. Now, even modern Who, with its bigger budgets and more advanced technologies, is not immune to these issues. You've got padlocks not opening on cue, you've got Silurian weapons not firing, the usual. But the best example of this comes from the 4th Doctor serial, The Sunmakers. Now, as Cordo rushes into the scene whooping and cheering, he's supposed to fire his gun into the air in celebration, but at least 3 takes saw the actor Roy McCready run into the scene and struggle to fire his weapon. Faulty props aside, it's actually a small miracle that his co-stars managed to keep a straight face, considering how hilarious his repeated shouts of "Yahoo!" are. Yeah! What's wrong? But it's scenes like this that really highlight that point that actors have to react to situations as if they are spontaneous and unexpected, and they've probably done them countless times already. Yeah! Number 7. Rose's missing face. Building friendships with our colleagues can really make the difference between a great day at work and a not so great day at work. But these friendships can also come with their limitations, namely not actually doing any work and spending the rest of the day joking and laughing with your mates. And actors are no different, except quite often they're required to remain totally serious or react with really deep emotion, when in reality they're standing opposite their friends wearing some sort of silly outfit or with a load of CGI markers on their face. And sometimes the giggles get the better of them. Now, it's no secret that David Tennant and Billie Piper got on really well when they were filming Series 2, and so the giggles did often strike. And one really good example of this is during the filming of The Idiot's Lantern, when a faceless Rose is revealed to the Doctor and Detective Inspector Bishop. Now, in reality, Billie Piper just had a load of dots on her face that were going to be edited later in post-production, and poor David Tennant really struggled to keep a straight face. At one point, you can even hear Tennant say that it's gonna be tough, and kudos to both of them for eventually getting it. I mean, how many jobs actually require you to imagine that your friend is missing their face? Number 6, K9 on the lash. Though not technically a blooper in the same vein as all the other entries on this list, this is just too glorious not to share with you. Included as an extra on the DVD release of The Armageddon Factor, this moment, reportedly a part of the BBC's 1978 Christmas tape White Powder Christmas, features the Fourth Doctor and Romana sat on the floor of the TARDIS getting rather close and drinking gin before offering some to K9. Now, witnessing the robot dog chugging gin through his straw and then singing a squiffy rendition of We Wish You a Merry Christmas has certainly never been on any Whovian's bingo card. And yet, it's a sight to behold.
We all like pudding, we all like pudding.
Now, whatever this actually is, it's clear that everyone was having a lot of fun, including the crew, who can be heard laughing just out of shot. Number 5, Contagious Corpsing. Now, although the last few years of Doctor Who have been disappointingly light on deleted scenes and bloopers, there have been a few released, which includes this one during the filming of Series 12's Praxeus. The problem was one of those sounds that even the most experienced thespians would struggle not to laugh at: a fart noise. The costume of one of the actors in the scene would make the farting noise every time they breathed, and so the giggles started to ensue. The problem was, the more the actor laughed, the louder the noise got, which caused even more laughter amongst Mandip Gill, Bradley Walsh, Jodie Whittaker, and pretty much everybody involved in the scene.
To check whether it's...
Jodie Whittaker also noted that Bradley Walsh was a notorious corpser, which meant that it was even harder to regain any sort of composure once the chaos began.
See their faces.
Number 4, Potty-Mouthed Dalek. As a family show, Doctor Who is very careful with its use of language. In fact, the modern era especially, the Doctor is very vocal about bad language and has been known to call out their companions on occasion. But of course, the show is made by adults who frequently drop swear bombs behind the camera. Now, while you're watching behind-the-scenes reels of Doctor Who for the last 60 years, it can be really odd to see the show stars out of character and hear them using that bad language. But what's even more unexpected is hearing the monsters swear. A good example of this is this blooper where we see a Dalek who takes a wrong turn and realises that they've lost their would-be victims, and then they let out a little "Bugger, I've lost them."
Bugger, I've lost them.
Now, kudos to voice actor Roy Skelton here, who took a little on-set mishap and turned it into comedy gold. Number 3, Clara Forgets to Die. Now, as previously mentioned, the last few years of Doctor Who have been very light on bloopers, but a few have been released, which also includes this one from Series 9's Face the Raven, which involves a living, breathing raven and Jenna Coleman forgetting what to do. As explained by Coleman, Doctor Who actors quite often have to react to events and monsters that aren't actually there during filming. But in this case, there was a real bird to perform the stunt where Clara is killed and falls to the floor. But Coleman was so focused on hitting her mark for the bird to fly towards that she completely forgot to react. In her own words, she forgot to die. Now, one can imagine that it must be quite difficult to focus on your performance when there's a real-life bird flying straight towards you. But on the plus side, this did give us a glorious clip of Peter Capaldi flapping like a bird behind his co-star. I mean, it's pretty impressive. Maybe they should have cast him as the Raven. Number 2, Needin' the Knackers. One of the reasons that the aforementioned Time of Angels and Flesh and Stone were the first episodes that Matt Smith and Karen Gillan filmed was so that Alex Kingston could be there as a supportive figure for the pair, as someone who already had experience of working on the show. Now, one of the first scenes that Matt Smith and Alex Kingston filmed together was the opening scene where River flies through space and lands on top of the Doctor in the TARDIS. But according to an interview on Doctor Who Confidential, the landing on top of him wasn't actually scripted. It was in fact Matt Smith's idea, an idea that he probably came to regret once filming actually began. That's because the stunt wasn't as easy to pull off as they originally thought and resulted in multiple takes where Alex Kingston's knee would land in some pretty uncomfortable places for poor Matt Smith. And this resulted in the pair of them bursting into fits of giggles.
Nearly on my knackers.
Now let it just be remembered that at this point in time, these two actors barely knew each other. But it's probably safe to assume that after all the fun and pain of filming this scene, they developed a much closer bond. Number 1, will you effing stay still? It must be very frustrating for the Doctor to so often be ignored when giving out serious life-saving instructions. Just ask Sylvester McCoy. During a scene in his final serial Survival, the 7th Doctor tells Ace and everyone with them to stay still so as not to provoke an attack by the cheetah people. Of course, nobody listens and they all start to run away. During one take of this sequence, Sylvester McCoy can be seen rather humorously losing his temper at the fact that nobody is listening to him, and then he starts to ad-lib his lines, adding some rather fruitful language, and then throws his jacket and himself onto the floor.
I don't know how many times I gotta tell you not to move! You moved!
Now this goes on for a good 20 seconds or so, and his commitment to the bit is admirable. He even earns himself some applause from the cast and crew by the end of it.
Wonderful.
And claims to have during a scene in... And he even ends... Now, witnessing the robot dog chucking? It's gone. I don't know what I need to say next. He even earns himself some applause from the cast and crew when he...